Ladies and gentlemen, the #1 motivational speaker and master sales trainer, Mr. Zig Ziglar.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I was coming in on a plane the other day, which is generally the way I fly. And I was seated next to an old boy. Couldn't help but notice he had his wedding band on the index finger of his left hand. Now, to say the least, that's a little unusual, and so I just commented on it. I said, "Friend, I can't help but notice you got your wedding band on the wrong finger." And he said, "Yeah, I married the wrong woman." Well, I don't know if that old boy married the wrong woman or not. But I do know that an awful lot of people have a lot of wrong ideas about what it takes to sell more Ford cars, what it takes to be more successful in life, what it takes to get more out of life. See, I don't think life is easy. Whether you're the newest salesperson Ford's got, or whether you've been with Ford 40 years or 50 years as a salesperson, I want to say to you that it's not going to get any easier. It'll get to be more fun. You'll become more professional at it. You'll do a lot of things. But life itself is tough. When I started my exercise program, it was not fun. I weighed well over 200 pounds, and I used to get so irritated at joggers. How many of you, now tell me the truth, how many of you hate joggers? Can I see your hands? I mean, I never, the first 10 months or 9 months I ran, I never saw a sane jogger. Every time I saw one, he's always jumping up and down and said, "Man, you feel so good, it made so much fun." And you know, they were a bunch of crazy people as far as I was concerned, because I was hating and hurting every single step I took. I mean, it was hurting, but I was determined, and it took me 9 months. But I never will forget, beautiful spring day, Portland, Oregon. It was high noon. I had a 4 o'clock seminar that afternoon. And as I was jogging on the campus there, a lot of the kids, the students were there. Some were reading, some were studying, some were snoozing, some were courting. And here comes old Ziglar running by. Sweat running down my back, sweat running down my legs. And that day, all of a sudden, it hit me like a ton of bricks that I was having a marvelous time. A marvelous time. When I started exercising to begin with, the first day I ran a block. That's one. I did better the next day. I ran a block and a mailbox. Up until then, my idea of exercise had been simply to fill the tub, take a bath, pull the plug, and fight the current. I mean, that had been it. I used to get out of breath running downstairs, if you know what I mean. The only thing I ever exercised until then was caution, and I did it carefully. And you know, that first day and the second and third, I hated every step. But then that beautiful breakthrough came in that city of Portland, Oregon that day. And since then, nearly 13 years, I have literally loved to jog. I mention that, ladies and gentlemen, because that day, for the first time, I realized you don't pay the price for good health. You enjoy the benefits of good health. You don't pay the price for a good marriage. You pay the price for a poor one. You enjoy the benefits of a good marriage. You don't pay the price to be successful in selling. You enjoy the benefits which go along with it. Not easy always. Matter of fact, seldom is. But it is so much easier and far more fun to be successful than it is to fail. See, life is not easy. Life's tough. But if you're tough on yourself, life is going to be infinitely easier on you. I well remember when our youngest daughter graduated from high school, and we went down to get her a car. Now, I'll have to confess, I've never sold automobiles personally. But if you were to ask me to describe a pretty fair prospect, I would describe it as being a daddy with a daughter who just graduated from high school. He publicly announces he's going to buy her a car. He's obviously in a hurry and apparently has the money to buy with. Now, I don't know how you'd rate him as a prospect, but I'd say that is a pretty fair prospect. Well, My daughter had not been to bed the night before. And the reason she had not been to bed the night before, she'd been up all night getting dressed. As we'd say down home, she had on her Sunday go to meeting best. I mean, this was a big event, a brand new car. I was working that day, so I was dressed approximately as I am today. We walked into the showroom there, and the young salesman had seen me, and I hasten to add, this was not a Ford dealership, all right? We walked, and I'm embarrassed about it, but she had made her choice at that moment. She said, let's go in there, Dad. And so we pulled in. The young salesman had obviously seen us part of the car, which was a nice car. And he came up to us, and although we gave no indication of being a charitable case, he offered charity. Can I help you? Well, we decided to turn the charity offer down because I was in a hurry. And as near as I can remember, here's exactly what I said. I said, yes, my daughter just graduated from high school, and we're going to get her a new car as a graduation present. He looked at me and looked at her and said, well, if you see anything you like, let me know. And he turned around and walked away. I thought that was pretty bad till I got to the next place. Same words, but this fella, ladies and gentlemen, this fella had B.O. Third place, almost as bad. The fourth place, we got lucky because my daughter had dated the salesman. And so we had a connection with the dealer, and we were able to buy a car in short order. But that's the first day I understood two things for the first time. I understood why we were having a recession. We couldn't get waited on. And I understood what the prospect means when they walk in and say, we're just looking. When they walk in and say, we're just looking, believe me, they are desperately looking for a salesperson to sell them something so they don't have to keep on looking. That's what I'm saying. The truth is, when the man and his wife or the man or the woman walk in your dealership, they've come in because they want a solution to a problem which they have or a desire which they have. Now with 40, if we can recognize basically that we need to solve their problem and that as individuals that we can get everything in life we want, if we'll just help them get what they want, which is a beautiful solution to a transportation problem or a transportation desire, then as salespeople we get the profit we wish because we have helped them get the answer to the problem they had or the desire they had. If you want to change the output in your life, you've got to change the input in your life. It really is about that simple. You see, you can not only hear something 10,000 times, you can memorize things verbatim and not have any idea what they mean, the significance of it. You can even see something, not just 10,000 times. You can actually look at something 50,000 times and still not really see what's there. Now, that's a pretty strong statement. I don't like to make statements unless I make every effort to document them, to verify them, to prove them. So let's see if we can do that. How many of you folks wear a wristwatch? Can I see your hands? Okay, now, don't look at them. Let me repeat that. Don't look at your wristwatch. According to the experts, the average American looks at his wristwatch 300 times a day. Now, I didn't believe that either when I first learned it. And then about 2 years ago, I broke the band on my wristwatch. And I can tell you that it was 2 days before I could get to the jeweler, and that wristwatch was in my pocket. And guess what I did for the next 2 days? About 4,000 times, I was there looking at my watch. I was absolutely astonished at the amazing number of times I was looking at it. Take my word for it, folks. You absolutely will look at that wristwatch at least 300 times a day. Now, that means if you've had your wristwatch a year, you've looked at it at least 10,000 times. How many of you have had your wristwatch at least a year? Can I see your hands? How many of you are already getting a little nervous that I'm fixing to ask you something you don't know about it? Can I say? Okay. How many of you have had your wristwatch 50,000 times? I mean, had your wristwatch 5 years, I'm sorry. Now, if you've had it 5 years, that means you've looked at it 50,000 times. Now, theoretically, there's no way I can ask you a question about the face of that watch that you can't answer. I'm going to ask you 3 questions. Now, don't dare look at it until I've asked all 3 of them. Don't answer out loud, and don't be a smart aleck and turn to your next door neighbor and tell them what the answer is. You're going to get your chance in just a moment, all right? Question number 1 is, answer to yourself now, does your watch have regular numerals or Roman numerals? How many of you are in trouble? Okay. Question number 2, does it have numerals at all? Or are they dots, slashes, blanks, emblems, you name it? Now, question number 3 is really tough. Matter of fact, it's actually unfair because it has 4 parts and they're not multiple choice either, all right? Question number 1, what's at the 12 o'clock slot? What's at the 3 o'clock slot? What's at the 6 o'clock slot? And what's at the 9 o'clock slot? Now that you've answered those questions to yourself, I want you to carefully, as a matter of fact, I want you to very carefully look at your watch. Isn't that amazing? Now, how many of you folks who've had your wristwatch at least a year missed at least one of the questions? Can I see your hands, all right? How many of you folks who've had your wristwatch 5 years missed at least one of the questions? Can I see your hand? How many of you remember just a minute ago when I said to you, now I want you to carefully, as a matter of fact, I want you to very carefully look at your watch. How many of you remember me saying that to you just a few seconds ago? Okay. What time is it? We got to remember, as we think about that wristwatch, that that's the reason our dealer wants us in that sales meeting to go over the same thing we just went over yesterday and the day before and the day before. You see, ladies and gentlemen, I firmly believe that if you can look at your wristwatch 50,000 times and still not know what is there, there is a definite possibility that the new tourist or the new Aerostar might have some more features about it that you do not quite understand, some more techniques, some more technology, and in order to communicate to that customer what we've really got, then what we've got to do is get the facts with the right attitude to communicate to the prospect. How many of you believe that your thinking has a definite direct bearing on your performance? Can I see your hands, please? All right. Now, before you change your thinking, you got to change what goes into your mind. We all want exactly the same thing. Whether you lived in the northwestern coast corner of Washington or the southeastern coast of Florida, anywhere in between, we all want basically the same thing. Everybody I've ever talked to wants to have good health. You know anybody who does not appreciate good health? I believe every one of you would accept a raise or a bonus if it were offered. Is there anybody here who would not accept a raise or a bonus if it were offered? If the boss put one up, you would accept it, wouldn't you? All right? Occasionally I'll have somebody say, well, I don't really want to make a lot of money, but I have discovered years ago that a man or a woman who'd say a thing like that would lie about other things too. And don't misunderstand, money's not everything. I mean, you know, there's stocks and bonds and real estate. There are other things. But everybody at least wants a good standard of living with some few surpluses to go along with it. Third thing everybody wants to be is happy. Everybody wants to have friends. Everybody wants to be secure. And everybody wants to have peace of mind. Those are 6 universals. Everybody wants those 6 things. So as salespeople, let me ask you a question. How many of them have you got? And you need to ask yourself that question, you see, because you need to find out what you've got and compare it with what you want. Because you see, if what you've got is short of what you want, then we need to explore how we got what we got. And what you're going to discover is you've got what you got based on your performance. So obviously, if you keep on doing what you've been doing, you're going to keep on getting what you've been getting. Last November the 26th, my redhead and I, my wife is a decided redhead, meaning simply one day that she just decided, the redhead and I were at our favorite ice cream parlor one night about a year ago. And we were sitting there having our ice cream, and in walked this young fellow and his girlfriend. Now, I surmise he's 23, 24, 25 years old. And when he walked in, I kind of nudged the redhead a little bit. I said, look at there, sweetheart. She said, I see him. I said, I wonder what happened. She said, what do you mean? I said, look, he's hurt. He's been in an accident. Oh, honey, she said, he hadn't been in an accident. He's been in the beauty shop or the barber shop. I said, that wasn't an accident? She said, no, honey, he's a punk rocker. In my lifetime, I've never seen a human being as badly mutilated from the ears up as this guy was. Now, the beautiful thing about America is, you see, he can choose to be that way. He can choose to look that way if he wants to. But he made another choice when he made that one. He chose to eliminate 98% of all employment opportunities. Your dealer wouldn't hire him. We certainly wouldn't hire him at our company. Why, we'd have to spend half our time just explaining the fella. I mean, now, what's all of this got to do with selling more Fords this year? It has everything to do. Because you see, the way you show up dressed physically and mentally is a choice you made, but you also chose directly when you made that choice as to how many new Fords you're going to be selling. It's all part of the package. Now, we can choose to greet that walk-in prospect enthusiastically, or we can choose to judge them and say, oh, he's just looking. Bum, you can tell the way he walks in. He's not Or you can choose to put him on trial, sentence him, convict him of being a buyer, and greet him enthusiastically and let him leave the proud owner of the new Ford. Yes, you can. I hope it's the latter because, you see, I've been a customer of Ford for nearly 30 years. I went to the wayside for one automobile, but I happen to believe in what you sell. And I hope you choose to greet them enthusiastically and professionally. I hope you're prepared physically and mentally to handle that prospect in the proper way. We go through life making lots of choices. Yes, your attitude's important because, my selling friends, your business is never either good or bad out there. Your business is either good or bad right here between your own two ears. If you've got that right mental attitude, and you know, occasionally you'll have that prospect who'll come in, and how many of you ever talked to a nasty prospect? Can I see your hands? I mean, cynical and skeptical. Some of them, you know, walk in looking like the cruise director for the Titanic. I know that happens. But the way they feel should not dictate how we feel towards them. When the prospect says to you, you know, that price is ridiculous, how do you respond to that as salespeople? Let me encourage you to try this approach with the right attitude, the right words, the right voice inflection. Just lower your voice, look them right in the eye and say, the price is ridiculous? Now, folks, that sounds so simple. But let me tell you what I did. I just moved the objection back to the other side of the table. Now the prospect's got to defend his statement instead of you having to justify the price. Dramatic difference. And ladies, this works in our personal and family lives as well, too. For example, you might beat your husband home one day, and he walks in the door, and you've had a lousy day, you know, and so he walks in the door, and you greet him warmly, obviously, and you say to him, honey, did you want to take me to Alamans or Farfallows for dinner? He might have had a bad day himself. He might say, I don't want to take you anywhere to dinner. Well, you don't argue with him. You just lower your voice and say, you don't want to take me to dinner? Huh? It almost ain't fair, ladies and gentlemen. It really isn't. But your attitude, your voice inflection, the way you handle it. Maybe one prospect is, you know, pretty nice, but he might say to you, well, it seems to me the price is a little high. You lower your voice and say, you know, Mr. Prospect, a few years ago, the Ford Motor Company executives got together and made what I think is one of the most beautiful decisions they've ever made. They decided that it would be easier to explain price one time than it would be to have to apologize for quality forever. Our customers are so excited and grateful they made that decision, and you're going to be excited about it too. The right words, the right attitude, the right intent, the right inflection makes a difference. How many of you folks ever hit a golf ball? Can you see your hand? How many times have you ever been part of a foursome and some dude steps up to the tee and he dribbles the ball down into the lake and turns to the other three and says, I knew I was going to do that. Then why in heaven's name did he do it? That is not the object of the game. That does not improve his score. Why in the world did not he back away from it and say reprogram and then step up down the middle and bust that dude right where he wants it? You see, we need to concentrate on asking for what we do want instead of what we don't want. The truth of the matter is a lot of people, I know salespeople have been on occasion guilty of this. Matter of fact, all people are guilty of this. You know, you're up kind of late at night, you got to get up early the next morning, and the last thing you do is you look at your watch as you lay down, you say, boy, but I'm going to be tired tomorrow. We are asking for what we do not want. And then we're absolutely astonished when we end up getting it. You see, the truth of the matter is, our attitude is what's going to make the dramatic difference in everything that we do. And if we want to change our attitude, then, ladies and gentlemen, we've got to deliberately change the input into our mind. Now, just as a matter of curiosity, how many of you know how to train fleas? Can I see your hands? And boy, it looks like I got here just in time. Anyhow, you train fleas by putting them in a jar. And fleas will jump up and hit the top like so. And you watch them, they'll jump a number of times, and then all of a sudden you will notice that even though they continue to jump, all of a sudden they will not be hitting the top. And then, as a matter of fact, you can take the top off, and they will continue to jump, but now they cannot jump out, and that's the literal truth. And the reason they cannot jump out is because they have conditioned themselves just to jump so high. And once they've conditioned themselves to jump just so high, that's all there is. There ain't no more. Man's pretty much the same way. He starts out in life to climb the mountain, to write the book, to break the record. He starts out in life to be Ford's #1 salesperson or the dealership's #1 salesperson. But along the way, he tubs his toe, he bumps his head, and he becomes what we call a SNIOP. Now, that's spelled S-N-I-O-P, and that's a person who is susceptible to the negative influence of other people. The most outstanding example of a flea trainer is a man named Roger Bannister. For years, athletes had tried to run the 4-minute mile. Nobody could until Roger Bannister came along. Now, the reason the other athletes could not do it is because they had been SNIOP'd. The coach had said, a 4-minute mile? Man, there's no way you can do it. It's impossible. The doctor said, a 4-minute mile? Why, your heart will come right out of your body. You absolutely cannot do it. And they were SNIOP'd right out of it. But Roger Bannister, with careful planning, extremely good conditioning, taking all the professional approaches, but with that positive mental attitude, broke the barrier. Now, when Roger Bannister broke the barrier, then what happened was very, very simple. Athletes the world over started breaking the barrier. Since then, there have been over 500 races run in less than 4 minutes. One man alone has run over 100 4-minute or sub-4-minute miles. We've seen it happen. One man, 37 years old, did it. Now, what is a flea trainer? A flea trainer is an individual who simply jumps out of a jar. He's not influenced by the negatives around him because he plants the positives within himself every day on a regular basis. He's there on time, enthusiastic for the sales meeting. He listens to Ford's carefully devised training program so he gets the right technical input, the right communication skills, and he works and studies on his own so he can jump out of the jar. Flea trainers are driven from within. Flea trainers understand that you can get everything in life you want if you'll just help enough other people get what they want. When I was a small boy down in Yazoo City, Mississippi, we lived next door to some rich folks. I know they were rich for 2 basic reasons. Number 1, they had a cook. Number 2, the cook had something to cook. I was over there for lunch one day, as I tried to be most every day. And the cook brought the biscuits out, and no exaggeration, those biscuits were not as thick as my wristwatch. And I looked at those biscuits there for a moment, and I said, Maud, what in the world happened to your biscuits? She reared back, gave a big old tummy laugh, and said, well, I'll tell you about those biscuits. She said they squatted to rise. But she said then they just got cooked in the squat. You know anybody gets cooked in the squat? You know anybody who's a half a mind to do something or gonna do something? Well, you see, the truth of the matter is the half a minders and the gonna doers end up being the never doers. You've had your friends and all say many different things on many different occasions. How many times have we heard somebody say, well, you know, as soon as the kids get out of school, we won't have as much pressure at home, and then I'll be able to concentrate more on selling more forward. But the kids get out of school, you know what they say then? Well, you know, I didn't realize how troublesome it was to have them underfoot all day, and now I got to take them somewhere all the time. I mean, it just really is bad. I'll be glad when school starts again. Then I'll really get mixed up in this campaign. Man, I'll sell more than anybody. And September comes, you know, the kids are back in school. And then you know what they say? Well, this is, you know, the kids are back in school. And finally, dear old Central High, after 23 losing years, has got a winning football team. And we got to go to the rallies. We got to go to the game. I mean, you got to support the kids, man. Wait till after the football season is over. And then, man, we'll really get behind it. The football season ends. And then you know what they say? Well, here it is, Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's, and you know, people are not really responsive to buying that new Ford during this time of the year. Wait till after the first of the year, man, and then you watch me. I'll really get out there. I'll knock them dead, boy. I'll lead the parade. You can just absolutely count on it. And then as soon as the holiday's over, you know what they say? The weather. Have you ever seen anything like this? In my lifetime, I have never seen a January like this in San Diego or Miami or Portland or Boston or Chicago. It's weird. You don't know from one day to the next what's that. Man, wait till this weather settles down, and then you watch me, boy. I'll get out there and I'll lead the parade. Oh, and I know what you're thinking. Just let me tell you, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, I've lost my enthusiasm. I've lost my drive. I've given up on winning the contest. Well, that's simply not the way I operate. Let me tell you the way I do. See, what I do is I get all of my ducks lined up. I mean, I carefully plan my strategy. I put it all together. And then when that magic moment arrives, you see, that's when I really get out there and I'll knock them dead. But I mean, the weather, it just isn't the right time right now. But when that weather gets right, you watch me, man, I'll tear them up. And finally the weather begins to subside and they say, well, you know, now it's Easter. And you know me, I'm a family man, and Easter time is a family time. And you said it yourself, your family is the most important thing, and if you can't spend some time with your family, I mean, there's no point in doing all of these things. Wait till after the holiday season is over for Easter and spring break is over, and you watch me, man, I'll get out there, and I'll still lead the parade on this contest. You just watch me go. But right now is just not the time. And then when that's over, you know what they say? Boy, at long last, we've got some decent weather. I haven't hit a golf ball and I don't know when. I haven't wet a hook and I can't tell you the day. And you said it yourself, you can't work all the time. I mean, a man's got to have some rest and relaxation. That's what the life is all about. Wait till after I've hit me a few golf balls, and then, man, I'll get out there and you watch me. I'll lead the force. I'll knock them dead. They relax a while, and then you know what to say? It's almost time for the kids to get out of school. And that's where we came in, isn't it? You see, the folks who wait on the new governor to be elected, the new president to go in, the folks who wait for the new advertising program to get started or the new cars to come out, the people who wait on the rate of interest to drop or inflation to slow, the people who wait on things to change out there before they make that internal decision to do something now with what they've got are invariably going to end up getting cooked in the squat. When you change the input in your life, when you get really wrapped up as a team player, understanding that when salesman and dealer and Ford Motor work together as a team, producing a magnificent product which is unarguably, dramatically better than ever before in history, beautifully styled and designed, right up to the standards that anybody would expect. When you get sold on and wrapped up in the opportunity which is yours, the privilege of selling a quality product, the opportunity to grow and go financially and mentally, then, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you that you can do some amazing things with your life. Buy these ideas, follow through, take these procedures to heart, put them to work, understanding I haven't said it's easy, but it's so much more fun to be successful than otherwise. If you'll do the things we've talked about, I can close as I always close by saying, do them. Do them now, and I'll definitely see you. And yes, I do mean you at the top. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very